생각하고 소설을 쓰면서 생겨난 인연도 많고 또 그 인연이 좋은 방식으로 이어지기도 하고요. 그래서 참 좋은 직업이구나 생각하고 늘 감사하고 예. 계속 감사하며 살겠다고 생각하죠. 예, 사실 제가 SF를 쓰려고 해서 SF를 쓴 게 아니라 제가 쓰고 싶은 걸 마음대로 썼더니 그걸 독자들이 SF라고 해석을 해주셨다고 생각하거든요. 그런데 만약에 내가 쓰고 싶은 것을 마음대로 쓰지 않고 어떤 유행하는 소설에 맞추거나 그냥 받아들여지는 소설에 맞춰서 썼다면은 제가 여기 있을 것 같지도 않고 어쩌면 아예 작가도 못 됐을 것 같아요. 그래서 여러분들이 쓰고 싶은 소설이 꼭 SF가 아니어도 좋으니까 자기가 쓰고 싶은 소설을 자유롭게 쓸 수 있으면 좋겠습니다. 사실 저는 영미권 SF 독자들은 SF를 다르게 읽지 않을까 하는 생각이 있었는데 리뷰를 보면 한국 독자 반응하고 많이 비슷하더라고요. 좋아하시는 부분도 비슷하고 어려워하는 부분도 비슷하고 사실 우리가 영미권 문학을 가져와서 읽을 때도 사실 비슷하게 읽잖아요. 아무 어려움 없이. 그래서 소설을 쓸 때 크게 개의치 않고 한국 독자들에게 맞추어 써도 마찬가지로 세계 독자들도 비슷하게 읽겠구나 하는 생각이 들었죠. 작품이 좋으면 수출된다고 믿으면 좋은데 제 느낌은 그렇지가 않은 것 같고 사실은 문학이 세계 문학이 되는 데는 나라의 힘이 크게 작용한다고 생각해요. 사실 문학은 자본이 전혀 들지 않는 예술이기 때문에 아마 세계 어느 나라에나 훌륭한 작가들이 있을 거고 단지 우리가 그들을 접하지 못할 뿐일 거라고 생각해요. 한국 문학이 지금 수출이 많이 되는 것도 다른 문화가 수출이 되는 것도 역시 나라의 힘이 조금 더 세져서라는 생각이 들어요. 그래서 사실 이 국격이라는 것이 경제적인 것만 있는 것이 아니라 사실 세계 시민으로서 어떻게 행동하는가, 인권이나 환경이나 난민이나 인종 문제에 대해서 어떻게 대응하는가 이것도 작용하지 않는가 생각하고요. 네, 국격이 더 높아지기를 기원합니다.
In our headlines on this Wednesday, July 2nd, here in South Korea. President Lee Jae-myung is poised to hold his first press conference on Thursday morning as he marks his first 1 month at the top office. And Korea's consumer prices in June rise at their fastest rate since January, accelerating 2.2% on year amid higher oil prices. Meanwhile, the U.S. says Israel has accepted the conditions for a 60-day ceasefire with Hamas and calls on the latter to do the same. Despite a presidential urge for unity, the South Korean parliament remains polarized even as it nears the end of its extraordinary session. Our political correspondent Shin Ha-young starts us off.
National unity is a key pledge that President Lee Jae-myung has emphasized since his candidacy. After becoming president, he extended that message to the rival parties in the National Assembly. During his inauguration, President Lee caught attention by wearing a red, white, and blue tie, symbolizing his message of unity across political affiliations. He also had lunch with Assembly Speaker Woo Won-sik and leaders from both the ruling and opposition parties, demonstrating his commitment to national unity from the very first day of his term.
양보할 건 양보하고 타협해서 가급적이면 모두가 함께 동의하는 그런 정책들로 우리 국민들이 더 나은 삶을 꾸리게 되기를 진심으로 소망합니다. 적대 전쟁과 같은 그런 정치가 아니고 서로 대화하고 인정하고 실질적으로 경쟁을 하는 그런 정치가 되기를 바랍니다.
However, the rival parties remain poles apart as the June extraordinary session nears its end. Back in power after 3 years, the ruling Democratic Party, which holds a majority in the 22nd National Assembly, has accelerated its efforts to pass contentious bills previously vetoed by the former administration. The DP unilaterally passed 3 special investigation bills, including one into former President Yoon Suk-yeol's declaration of martial law and related insurrection charges. The rival parties also clashed over 4-term lawmaker Kim Min-seok's qualifications to serve as prime minister. The main opposition People Power Party has refused to adopt the confirmation hearing report, citing Kim's failure to submit key documents mainly about his wealth and family, while the DP plans to push for an assembly vote to approve him by July 4th. There is also a bipartisan standoff over the new administration's supplementary budget. The DP is aiming to pass it by Thursday, while the PPP is raising concerns about fiscal soundness and fairness. Despite the ongoing tensions, the National Assembly Public Administration and Security Committee approved a 13.2 trillion Korean won, or about $9.7 billion supplementary budget on Tuesday to fund consumption vouchers, with both parties agreeing to the plan. Having consistently emphasized national unity, all eyes are on how President Lee and the Assembly will navigate the ongoing standoff between the rival parties and work toward bipartisan cooperation. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
Now, later this week, that would be tomorrow, we mark President Lee Jae-myung's first full month at the top office. That being said, our foreign affairs correspondent Oh Soo-young takes a look at the framework of his foreign policy thus far as he pledges pragmatic diplomacy.
Lee Jae-myung's pragmatic diplomacy blends continuity and change, based on the deliberate calculation of national interest. His diplomatic debut came at the G7 summit in June, where he held 10 bilateral meetings with world leaders. After a 6-month leadership vacuum caused by former President Yoon Suk-yeol's martial law crisis, Lee's presence aimed to renew South Korea's standing as a vibrant democratic partner. Lee Jae-myung has also reaffirmed the Seoul-Washington alliance and future-oriented relations with Tokyo. His first phone calls were with Donald Trump and Shigeru Ishiba, followed by China's Xi Jinping, breaking the tradition of progressive leaders prioritizing Beijing over Tokyo. Lee's foreign policy also shows signs of recalibration. While maintaining key partnerships with democratic countries, the administration is diversifying cooperation and avoiding value-based alignment, seeking to engage with China and Russia where possible. On North Korea, Lee's approach has been focused on reducing tensions. In his first month, he suspended loudspeaker broadcasts and cracked down on cross-border leaflet campaigns, signalling a break from the tit-for-tat escalation seen in recent years. His cabinet nominations reflect this push for peace over alliance-based deterrence. Foreign Minister nominee Cho Yeon last week called for moving beyond the, quote, stereotype that diplomacy begins and ends with the United States, while stressing US-North Korea dialogue and building peace on the peninsula as core priorities. Unification Minister nominee Chung Dong-young could return to a role he held under the Nomuyoung government. He helped organize the 2007 Inter-Korean Summit. Defense Minister nominee Ang Kyu-baek, set to become the first civilian to hold the post in more than 60 years, has stressed the need to build peace along the border. North Korea, along with trade and security, will likely top the agenda when Lee meets Donald Trump later this month. Their meeting will mark the first test of Lee's ability to navigate the alliance while asserting South Korea's national interest. The US will likely push for Seoul to cover more costs related to defense, and possibly the deployment of US strategic assets in South Korea. Lee and Trump were originally expected to meet during the G7, but the meeting fell through as Trump left early amid conflict between Israel and Iran. Officials from both sides say a summit is being arranged in Washington, likely the week of July 21st. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, on the economic frontier, inflation in the country picked up pace in June, rising at its fastest rate since the start of this year. Our correspondent Kim Do-yeon covers this rise in rate and the reasons behind it.
Consumer prices in South Korea climbed back to the 2% range in June, marking the fastest pace in 5 months. According to the data released by Statistics Korea, consumer prices in June increased by 2.2% year-on-year. The jump comes after last month the on-year percentage dropped below 2 at 1.9.
Although the increase in livestock prices has slowed, the decline in agricultural products has narrowed. Petroleum products have turned upward, and prices for processed foods and other items, excluding dining out, have risen further, resulting in a 2.2% year-on-year increase.
Processed food prices, in fact, jumped 4.6% for the sharpest increase since late 2023. And this means bread, coffee, and ham led the gains, but one of the most popular processed foods for Korea, ramyeon, also jumped. Once a cheap source for a quick meal, ramen prices aren't what they used to be. On year, the prices have jumped 6.9%. That's the highest in 21 months. The government explains that this is due to ingredient prices going up.
I think it's really expensive. I don't buy in bulk anymore, and I eat less of it.
Seafood prices also saw a notable climb, up 7.4%, with officials pointing to global warming and unstable marine conditions. Consumers feel the difference and need to take advantage of good opportunities.
We're a family of 3, and we used to eat a lot of fish. It's too expensive for us now, but I'm here because I heard there's a sale.
Meanwhile, oil prices edged up 0.3% due to the geopolitical tensions in the Middle East. The finance ministry said that given uncertainties such as weather conditions and volatility in global oil prices, it'll make all-out efforts together with related ministries to stabilize consumer prices. In particular, to keep food prices in check, it plans to continue measures such as discounts on agricultural, livestock, and fisheries products, as well as applying quota tariffs on key food ingredients. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
The Bank of Korea believes the government-proposed supplementary budget will boost South Korea's economic growth by 0.2 percentage point this year. Speaking at the European Central Bank Forum in Portugal on Tuesday, Governor Lee Chang-ryong also revealed that the BOK remains in a rate-cutting cycle after lowering rates by 1 percentage point since last October. He nonetheless stressed that the timing and size of future rate cuts will take into account financial stability risks, including rising household debt. The Lee Jae-myung administration held its first senior-level talks with its Chinese counterpart earlier on Tuesday here in Seoul. According to the Foreign Ministry here, Director General for North, East and Central Asian Affairs Kang Young-shin sat down with China's head of Asian Affairs Ryu Jin-sung. On their agenda was an agreement to boost communication and cooperation as South Korea looks to host this year's APEC summit in the autumn. The two officials also addressed prospects of practical partnerships to benefit their respective citizens while sharing concerns over tensions on the peninsula and in the West Sea. While not officially acknowledged, these latest talks are believed to have touched upon the alignment between North Korea and Russia and Chinese-built structures in the West Sea. US President Donald Trump claims Israel has accepted the conditions for a 60-day ceasefire with Hamas. He's now calling on the Palestinian militant group to do the same. Our Park Gonu has the latest.
A temporary ceasefire between Israel and Hamas may be about to take effect. This comes after US President Donald Trump posted on social media Tuesday that Israel has agreed to the necessary conditions to establish a 60-day ceasefire. He also said efforts from all parties will be made to end the war during that period. Related hours-long talks between Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff and Israeli Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer took place at the White House earlier the same day. Trump also urged Hamas to accept the proposal that's set to be delivered by mediating countries Qatar and Egypt. He warned that the conditions will only get worse if Hamas does not accept the offer. No clear response from Hamas has yet been made. Pundits say Hamas's long-standing desire for a permanent ceasefire and staying in power could act as a potential variable. Alongside these remarks, Israel has continued to ramp up its military pressure. Israeli officials warned of more intense attacks to come if the deal does not proceed soon, ordering civilians in Gaza City to move to the south. Israeli forces have reportedly killed scores of people in Gaza on Tuesday alone. Amid persistent tensions in the region, Trump is set to meet Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu next week for further discussions. Trump said he plans to take a very firm stance during the meeting, raising questions on whether the proposed ceasefire will actually proceed as he claims. Park Gonu, Arirang News.
And the U.S. leader has reaffirmed his resolve against an extension in the pause on country-specific tariffs following his self-imposed deadline next week. Our Moon Hae-ryun has more.
With a suspension period on tariffs set to expire soon, US President Donald Trump signaled that he has no plans to extend the deadline and that new trade penalties for some countries may soon take effect. Speaking to reporters aboard Air Force One on Tuesday, he singled out Japan after taking to social media the day before to criticize Tokyo for refusing to import American rice despite facing a domestic shortage.
And so what I'm going to do is I'll write him a letter, say we thank you very much. We know you can't do the kind of things that we need, and therefore you'll pay 30%, 35%, or whatever the number is that we determine, because we also have a very big trade deficit with Japan.
On the other hand, he said a deal to reduce the 26% tariff rate for India to much less is on the table, after Indian officials extended a visit to the White House last week. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told Fox News prior to the statement that the two countries are close to making a deal that lowers levies for both parties. India is one of 57 named countries targeted by country-specific mutual tariffs announced back in April, before they were pushed back for a 90-day negotiation period. During that period, Washington has pushed for talks focused on tariff rates, trade imbalances, and non-tariff barriers. Only the UK has been able to negotiate a limited trade deal with the Trump administration so far, accepting a 10% US tariff on certain items in exchange for special access to aircraft engines and British beef. Going forward, the Trump administration is reportedly planning meetings with its trade team to set tariff rates for individual countries as the July 9th deadline approaches. The U.S. director of the National Economic Council revealed on Monday that the U.S. president will review tariff plans for each country, while Bessent warned that tariffs could remain high for countries that do not cooperate. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
In other news, the heat wave over in Europe is intensifying, with temperatures across countries there breaking records. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
It's only early July, but Europe is suffering from a record-breaking heat wave. A strong high-pressure system is trapping hot air from northern Africa, while higher temperatures on the Mediterranean Sea are reinforcing temperatures over land areas. Countries seeing the worst of the heat wave include France, Italy, and Spain, with temperatures surpassing 40 degrees Celsius. Central France reported temperatures as high as 41 degrees, while Spain's southwest region saw mercury readings reach 46 degrees on Saturday. The Portuguese city of Mora rose to 46.6 degrees on Sunday, marking the highest June temperature on record. Amid the heat wave in Europe, the World Health Organization issued a stern warning on Monday, calling for urgent action to prevent tens of thousands of unnecessary and preventable deaths. According to Marisol Garcias-Gonzalez, the technical advisor on climate change and health at the WHO, it's no longer a question of whether there will be a heat wave, but rather how many there will be this year and how long they'll last. Statistician Pierre Massolet from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine also warned that between June 30th and July 3rd, the heat wave could cause more than 4,500 excess deaths. He warned that countries likely to record the highest rates of excess deaths are Italy, Croatia, Slovenia, and Luxembourg, adding that the worst days will likely be Tuesday and Wednesday. And according to the World Meteorological Organization, intense heat waves may become the norm for Europe.
The frequency and intensity of extreme heat events is increasing in Europe, and by 2050, about half the European population may be exposed to high or very high risk of heat stress during summer.
The heat wave is also raising concerns that the Eiffel Tower may experience deformation of around 20 centimeters. According to French daily Le Parisien on Monday, the steel structure bends slightly from various angles throughout the day due to the movement of the sun. It added that while the intense heat wave may lead to a wider angle of deformation, the tower returns to shape when temperatures cool during nighttime. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
On the K-pop front, BTS is set to return with a new album and a world tour next spring. Intentions to this end were shared by BTS members during a live broadcast on the K-pop fan platform vows on Tuesday. All 7 members of the group have completed their mandatory military service here in the country, with Suga being the final member to be discharged late last month. And downtown Seoul has been transformed into a K-drama set until this Sunday, much to the delight of Squid Game fans amid the release of Season 3 last Friday. Our Park Hyo-bin files this report.
Tourists are stepping into Squid Game. They're not just watching the show. They're playing the games, walking the sets, and reliving scenes in the very heart of Seoul.
Festival was excellent, and I take part in this game and I win it. So I got some prize. I really enjoy it.
You know, one day she just found the tickets and we just said, hey, let's go. And we couldn't pass it up because it's such an iconic film from Netflix. And we're
Here at the Gwanghwamun Square, tourists are diving into the world of Squid Games as they're playing games that were featured in the series.
This interactive experience is part of the 2025 K-Content Seoul Travel Week, a collaborative event hosted by the city of Seoul and global streaming giant Netflix. Alongside the game zone, visitors can stop by the Seoul Spot travel booth, which features exhibitions from 10 Netflix K-dramas and travel guides to nearby filming locations and restaurants. Also drawing crowds is the Seoul Spot Dorsen Tour, a guided walk through real-life filming spots led by actors themselves. They visited several filming locations from Squid Game, including Tapgul Park and Jonggak Station.
We had participants from so many countries, and some even understood the drama better than I did. But what impressed me most was their heartfelt love and passion for Korean culture.
The event, which runs till July 6th, kicked off with a bang last Saturday, featuring a massive Squid Game Season 3 finale celebration. Performers in the show's signature costumes marched from Gwanghwamun to Seoul Plaza, transforming the streets into a surreal K-drama parade. Fiction and reality blend together in the streets of Seoul, inviting fans not just to watch the story, but to step right into it. Park Hyo-bin, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. Thailand's Constitutional Court has suspended Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra from office following a petition from 36 senators amid controversy over a leaked phone call. On Tuesday, Thailand's Constitutional Court voted 7-2 to suspend Paetongtarn, pending a 15-day investigation into allegations of dishonesty and ethical misconduct related to a leaked June 15th call with Cambodian politician Hun Sen. In the conversation, Paetongtarn referred to Hun Sen as uncle and criticized a Thai military commander as an opponent. The Bumjai Thai Party, Paetongtarn's key coalition partner, withdrew support after the leak, prompting renewed public protests demanding her resignation. The deputy prime minister has been appointed as the acting prime minister. While Paetongtarn transfers to the Cultural Ministry from July 3rd, she's barred from exercising executive power during the proceedings. The National Anti-Corruption Commission is conducting a parallel investigation that could escalate to a Supreme Court case, potentially leading to a political ban if she's found guilty. In India, the death toll from an explosion at a pharmaceutical factory has risen to at least 36. The blast on Monday at Sigachi Industries factory in Telangana state occurred at the spray dryer unit of the plant, causing the structure to collapse, while over 140 workers were inside. Rescue teams have retrieved 34 bodies from the rubble, and 2 others died later in hospital. More than 30 people suffered injuries and are being treated for burns. Officials said additional casualties cannot be ruled out until debris from the collapsed building is fully cleared. The U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, officially ceased independent operations on Tuesday, July 1st, after 64 years. Over 80% of its programs folded into the State Department under an America First reorganization plan. Meanwhile, a new study projects that these funding cuts could result in more than 14 million avoidable deaths globally by 2030, including children under 5. Between 2001 and 2021, USAID funded efforts prevented about 91 million deaths from diseases like HIV and malaria. While former Presidents Obama and Bush denounced the closure, Secretary of State Rubio said inefficiency has officially come to an end. Dubai hosted the first piloted test flight of Joby Aviation's fully electric air taxi on Monday, ahead of its official commercial launch in 2026. It's the first in-market series of flight tests following initial trials in California earlier this year and included vertical takeoff and precise landing sequences. The California-based company says its flagship aerial taxi can carry 1 pilot and 4 passengers, reach speeds up to 320 kilometers per hour, and fly approximately 160 kilometers per charge. This could reduce the trip from Dubai International Airport to Palm Jumeirah to 12 minutes, down from a 45-minute drive by car. Choi Ji-hee, Arirang News.
Tropical nights at night and heat waves during the day have been continuing for days now. The lowest temperature in Gangneung this morning was 30.4 degrees Celsius, which was a super tropical night. These tropical nights have been appearing in Seoul for 3 days in a row. Today's daytime temperature in Seoul rose up to 32 degrees, and it felt like 33 degrees, while Jeonju felt as high as 36 degrees today. It's easy to get heat-related diseases in these steaming conditions, so please refrain from outdoor activities when the sun shines strongly. Tomorrow morning will still be warm at around 24 to 26 degrees all over the country. Daily highs will move up to 32 degrees in Seoul and Jeju, 34 degrees in Daejeon. A heat wave without any rain forecast will continue for the time being. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Coming up next is our daily panel session. Thank you for now.
철이라는 게 정말 중요한 자원이에요. 광물에서 얻어서 힘들게 만들어진 철이라는 자원인데 그게 정말 너무 쉽게 쓰고 버려지죠. 쓰는지도 모르고. 빵 같은 거 포장되어 있는 빵끈 철사 같은 경우에는 정말 그 한 3초 손에 입고 이제 쓰레기통에 버려지잖아요. 그 안에 철이 들어있는 것도 이제 인지를 못하고. 저 스스로도 작업하기 전에는 저도 그냥 풀러서 쓰레기통에 버리고 했는데 작업을 하고 나니까 그런 철사들이 정말 많이 모인다는 거를 알게 됐어요. 저는 이제 더 이상 일회용으로 한 번 쓰고 버리는 철사가 나오지 않아서 제발 철사를 돈을 주고 사서 작업을 할 수 있었으면 좋겠다는 생각도 하고 있습니다. 숲과 산과 강이 정말 나를 보호하고 있구나라는 생각을 이 글귀를 읽으면서 생각을 해서 이걸 제가 제일 좋아하는 문장입니다. 철사뿐만 아니라 내가 내 손에 들어오는 것들이 나한테 꼭 필요한 건지 이게 나한테 정말 유용한 건지 이런 생각을 좀 해보면 좋겠어요. 나는 버려지는 철사에 새 삶을 주는 그리너다.
Arirang TV is conducting an overseas TV viewer survey to provide you with a better global broadcast service. Share your valuable feedback on the Arirang TV website www.arirang.com or mobile application. Survey participants will be selected at random to receive special gifts. 2025 Arirang Overseas TV Viewers Survey. We look forward to hearing from you.
Maybe I gotta do it. I can't see a number. Can somebody help me? It's your imagination. Maybe I gotta do. I can't see a number. Can somebody? It's like carry on with all that I am. I won't let you down, yeah. That's family I'm singing for. With all that I am, I'll be there with you. Open up your heart, I will dance with you, oh my lover. We can finally feel.
Here. It was very important for Korean people during that time to get their freedom back.
Exports rebound in June to reach a fresh record of almost $60 billion for the month, up over 4% on year, driven by demand for chips and cars. With more on Press Perspective today. Hello and welcome to Wednesday's edition of Press Perspective. It's July 2nd here in Seoul. I'm Min San-hee. Today we touch upon the latest events on the economic front here in South Korea. For this, I have Lee Ji-hoon with international news agency Reuters here in the studio. Chun, it's been a while. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
I also have Rui Valdez with Spanish news agency EFE Spain. Rui, as always, it's great to have you here.
A pleasure to be here.
Right, Chun, we will start with you. And before we talk about exports, Chun, let's first start with the rally that the Korean stock market has been witnessing in recent days, especially last week.
Yeah, the Kospi rose above a key milestone of 3,000 last month, and for the first time since the COVID-19 pandemic, and ended the month with a gain of nearly 14%, which was the biggest since November 2020. The rally was driven by post-election policy ops, as political uncertainty was resolved after the snap presidential election on June 3rd, which ended 6 months of leadership vacuum. President Lee Jae-myung, who won the election, has pledged to boost the domestic stock market with his so-called Kospi 5,000 pledge, which includes the revision of the Commercial Act to better protect minority shareholders, along with other market reform measures. Lee has also vowed to win a promotion to develop market status by a global index provider, MSCI. And his vice finance minister said yesterday his government will prepare a task force to address the issue. President Lee said yesterday financial markets have become a substitute to the property market for investors, and the trend should continue in the country. Last month's stock market rally was led by financial stocks, especially securities firms, because there were hopes that a stock investment will become more popular among South Koreans during President Lee's administration. And technology stocks also rallied last month, especially those related to artificial intelligence and stable coins, because President Lee has vowed to boost investment in those sectors as well. President Lee created a new job called AI Secretary and appointed an expert from Naver to the job. And he also appointed blockchain expert to his chief policy secretary, raising optimism around those sectors.
Right, and staying with this strong optimism, South Korea's consumer confidence rate soared last month, that is June. Again, what are the figures there and the factors behind them?
Right, after months of economic anxiety and political upheaval, South Korean consumers seem to give signals of optimism. The consumer index, rose to 108.7 in June, which means up 6.9 points from May. It's the highest level since June 2021. And is the second consecutive month above the neutral 100 mark, which means that there's more optimist than pessimist people in terms of consumption. There are several reasons why experts interpret that this happened, which is a boost driven by the June 3rd election of the new president after all the upheaval related to the imposition of the martial law. And, well, there's a renewed trust in leadership and economic direction. The new president, Lee Jae-myung, has been promoting two supplementary budgets. One already did, and now one is being revised. And this has, consumers have interpreted this as a strong policy commitment to revive growth and protect livelihoods from the new administration. And there are also other indexes that give consumers a higher sense of stability. Expected inflation for the next year fell to 2.4%, and it's also similarly expected for the next 3 and 5 years, which makes consumers think that the price will remain stable. Even though there's this optimism, it could be also temporary, because as we would speak during the show, there are big factors that could affect negatively the consumer's perspective. The Central Bank of Korea warns of uncertainty from the US tariff policy, which next week will be an important deadline, and the ongoing Middle East conflict also could affect consumer sentiment.
Right, indeed. And before we touch upon the tariffs then, Chun, as I mentioned at the start of this session, on the trade front, South Korea's exports rebounded in the month of June. Could you tell us a bit more about this particular finding and the factors fueling it?
Yeah, data came out yesterday, and it shows South Korea's exports rose 4.3% last month, and that comes after exports fell in May for the first time in 4 months because shipments to the US and China fell more than 8% due to tariff uncertainty. In June, exports of semiconductors jumped 11.6% to a record high, leading the headline figure higher because thanks to a strong demand for artificial intelligence. But the breakdown of data showed exports in other sectors remained weak due to ongoing uncertainty over US tariffs. Exports to the US fell 0.5%. There was third straight month of decline, and the exports to China also dropped 2.7% last week. By product, exports of cars rose 2.3%, but that was thanks to strong demand for electric vehicles in Europe. But those car exports to the United States, they still fell. They dropped 18%. There were also signs that South Korean automakers were increasing production in the United States, as exports of auto parts rose 2.4% last month. Among other products, steel products and home appliances, they also fell 8% and 15.6% due to US tariffs. So there has been some divergence between tech sector and non-tech sectors, and also divergence between US shipments and non-US shipments. After the data release, South Korean trade minister said uncertainty or volatility of US tariff policy will likely persist in the second half of this year. And economists also said it was too early to say exports have bottomed out, because South Korea said earlier this month that it will need more time to negotiate tariff deal with the US past the July 8th deadline. So which means uncertainty will persist for at least a couple more months. Yeah.
Right, and I guess the backdrop of uncertainty, Chun, I understand inflation here in South Korea climbed last month. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, consumer prices rose 2.2% over the year in June, and that was the fastest since January. And it was for the first time in several months that the inflation figure was above the central bank's medium-term target of 2%. That was because oil prices rose sharply in June because of heightened uncertainty over geopolitical tensions in the Middle East.
Right, I see. Rui, the Trump administration, as you mentioned, its pause on reciprocal tariffs comes to an end next week. Now, that being said, how many bilateral tariff deals has the administration been able to seal? And also, what's the latest with regard to South Korea's negotiations with the US with regard to its tariffs?
Yes, starting with the first part of the question, so far the UK and China has struck deals with the US in terms of tariffs. The UK deal, in the UK deal, US agreed to a 10% tariff cap on 100,000 British automobiles per year, plus 0 tariffs on aerospace, and UK scrap duties on US beef and ethanol. In the part of China, what has been said is they established a framework to accelerate rare earth exports to the US in exchange of lifted countermeasures. While this was announced, we haven't seen formally the details of this deal, so we need to really see the small letters on this before really getting to any conclusion. But those will be the most important countries that have established some kind of deal with the US. In terms of South Korea, we can say that the clock is ticking and Seoul tariff gamble may come down the wire. There's a huge concern because if Seoul does not get to a beneficial deal or mitigates the damage that these tariffs, the current tariffs could do, and the ones that will be reapplied next week, it will have a major blow in their economy. Last month, at the end of last month, the Trade Minister of South Korea met U.S. Commerce Secretary Lutnick and the U.S. Trade Representative. In that meeting, Seoul still requested a full exemption on tariffs, meaning that they want an exemption on the reciprocal tariffs, but also in the sectorial tariffs, like in automobiles and steel. If Korea doesn't get to a deal, what we're talking about is that they will have to deal with 25% tariffs on cars and steel, a potential between 35 and 50% reciprocal tariffs on other exports by this deadline. And if this happens, let's say without any deal, the Central Bank of Korea warns that this could cut this year GDP by 0.3 or 0.4%. Just to have an idea of context, Korea exports to the US make up over 18% of the total outbound trade. What experts are saying is that Seoul should expand in their negotiation to include supply chain cooperation, defense, energy, shipbuilding to get to some kind of deal. The thing is that, as we have been speaking, every country does have a very specific trade relationship with the US, no? And South Korea, in comparison to the other countries that struck a deal, depends much more in US economy, so it makes it much more hard to, let's say, to have leverage in this sense. So what experts are saying is that they will have to give in some sectors. Still, after evaluating this calculation, they still don't think there's a compelling rationale behind the calculation, because they point out that 95% of US exports already enter Korea duty-free. So that has been kind of the part that has stand out a lot when these tariffs were applied to South Korea. And in the last development on this news, there was some comments from Trump's team beforehand that gave an opening that this deadline could be even extended. The Treasury Secretary of US even mentioned until September on Labor Day. But Trump recently said that he's not gonna give in, he's not gonna extend the deadline. As we always know, with Trump, things are very uncertain, so he could change his mind in the next couple of hours, I don't know. But basically, South Korea doesn't have another chance than to take these negotiations very seriously because of the way their export-led economy is so attached to the US.
Right. Rui, as you mentioned earlier, quite a number of pundits are saying US tariffs on South Korean products will hinder its GDP. Yep. But speaking at a forum over in Portugal on Tuesday, that is yesterday, BOK Governor Lee Chang-yong actually said the supplementary budget currently proposed by the government may serve to raise the country's economic growth by 0.2 percentage point. This being said, could you tell us a bit about this second supplementary budget as proposed by the government?
Right. Since the campaign has been the policy promoted by Lee Jae-myung, of course, they noticed that in the first quarter, there has been the economy contracted, and so they need to stimulate consumption to promote growth. And they are also very concerned about the effects that the tariffs will have if they are implemented, as we discussed. So they believe that through this second budget that they have proposed of 20.2 trillion won. It includes, well, in total is 30.5 trillion won, but 20.2 trillion won will be directed to spending, while the rest is going to be part of a damage control to cover tax revenue shortfalls. So taking into account the spending part, what they want to do is a universal cash handout for everybody. 51 million citizens will get this. Around 84% or most of these citizens will get 250,000 won, around $180. And in fact, I have to give Ji-hyun some kind of credit because he wrote a piece on this very helpful for today's program. I will feel bad if I don't mention him. And well, of course, in a broader economic stimulus, besides the part of giving these handouts, they want to give financial aid for construction and infrastructure, investments in AI, which has been also a part that has been highly promoted by President Lee since the campaign. And digital innovation, also support to SMEs, and debt reliefs programs for small businesses. The fiscal deficit of Korea will expected to reach 4.2% of GDP, and the government debt to rise 49% of GDP. Of course, there's people that are concerned because nothing is free, right? Like you're gonna pass on these huge extra budgets. But if you analyze, let's just put, well, we have to take into account that every economy is different, but to put it in a level, South Korea will be in a medium level comparing the debt of other advanced economies. But as I mentioned, maybe US has more than 100%, and then Germany has little, but we could say that in principle, South Korea would not be exaggerating its debt, but still we need to be cautious about it because they say they will cover it with treasury bonds, but at the same time, nothing is free. So that doesn't guarantee that this debt in the long term will be paid. But so far, as you were mentioning, Sung-hee, the objective of these budgets are mainly to stimulate the economy, which has had a contraction and not very well, not a good performance in the first quarter, and to prepare for what could be coming with the tariffs.
Right, for sure. And Roy, aside from that coverage by Chiun for Reuters on the supplementary budget, you also covered a piece about the concerns raised by a BOK board member about financial stability here in South Korea. Could you tell us a bit more about that coverage?
Yeah, the Bank of Korea's board members have been raising concerns about financial stability in recent days, and most recently, Governor Ri Chang-yong said yesterday he was watching out for financial stability risks due to rising housing prices, especially in the capital Seoul area. House prices have been rising in recent months, especially around the capital area, on lower interest rates, as well as on expectations that there will be an upward trend under the new Liberal administration. And that has led to household debt's growth that was the biggest since September 2024 in May. That is why the government last week held an unexpected emergency meeting over household debt and announced strong measures to curb housing prices. The measures include cutting year-end loan targets for commercial banks and capping mortgage loans to the limit of 600 million won for home purchases and other regulations that are tightened on mortgages. These measures are local media reported these measures are the unprecedented and the strongest ever announced in this country. And that is being a key variable for the Bank of Korea, which has been lowering interest rates since last year to counter downward pressure on economic growth. The Bank of Korea, when it last lowered interest rates in May, said there were 4 board members who were open to another rate cut in the 3 months time frame. But now expectations are growing that the Bank of Korea will hold interest rates steady at its upcoming meeting next week because of rising concerns over household debt and the property market. An investment bank, Citi, already expects the Bank of Korea's rate cutting cycle will be slower going forward, with the next cut expected in October, not after the following meeting in August, because the Bank of Korea will want to watch or wait and see to assess the impact of recent government measures announced last week.
Right, as well as, of course, like consumer prices that we just heard about today as well. Rui, we have time for one more question. I'd just like you to touch upon the president's pick for finance and economy minister. What can you tell me about this particular person and the policies that he may shape going forward?
Yes, well, his name is Koo Yoon-chol, and he's famously known as the AI evangelist. And this is because he wrote a policy blueprint called AI Korea, and he has been promoting the AI support as a policy in all levels of government and the country. We will get into that. He's 60 years old. He's a career civil servant with deep roots in the Ministry of Economic and Finance. We could say that he's a budget expert, and this is very related to what we have been talking about. President Lee Jae-myung looked for somebody who could help him devise expansionary fiscal policy that, well, in principle, would be healthy, but at the same time able to stimulate the economy. Also, Minister Koo is known because he drafted the 500 trillion won budget and 2 COVID-era supplementary budgets. I don't know if we can recall, in COVID-era there was many supplementary budgets that were passed on because of the emergency, of course. And Pundit said that the profile of the new minister seems like a natural lift on this pledge to achieve 3% real growth and large-scale structural reform. He has a strong record of interagency coordination and budget innovation, and he says that, well, he pledges that he will build a virtuous cycle of national development and public happiness. All this related to the support of AI research, development, and training. So they are going very strong on this. If we can see here, the president in many interventions, he has mentioned the word AI many times in different, let's say, scenarios. And yeah, so the vision of the new minister is a corporate vision of the country. He says he declared aim to manage the Korean economy like a corporation where citizens are the real shareholders. And he called for new growth engines and an inclusive system to share economic gains. This is more or less the profile of the new minister.
Right, it's a great ambitious plan, and hopefully takes fruit, or bears fruit in the near future. All right, well, as always, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts.
Thank you, sir.
Chiun, thank you very much for your insights.
Thank you.
Right, on that note, we end this edition of Press Perspective. As always, thank you for watching, and do join us again same time tomorrow.
도시는 세계와 연결되어 문화를 창조했고 새로운 것을 받아들였다.
자유,
융합,
국제성,